Hi guys, my name is Brody,
Hi, my name is Ben.
My name is Isaac.
and the open source project we were working with this summer is Open Journal Systems, also known as OJS, and we were working with a Terraform configuration to deploy a web app. And you can go to the next slide.
So what is OJS? Open Journal Systems, also known as OJS, is used to manage the workflow of scholarly journals and as a publishing platform. Articles and issues can be published online and indexed in global discovery services like Google Scholar. OJS software is maintained by the Public Knowledge Project, and their mission is to make research information publicly available. Our project goals are to quickly develop or deploy OJS on any cloud provider in just a few steps. So that would mean create a Terraform configuration to deploy OJS on Microsoft Azure with the implementing of Azure database for MySQL flexible server. For the Azure overview, cloud computing platform developed by Microsoft, offering many services manageable through Azure portals. Microsoft has data centers around the world with servers allowing users to create resources through the Azure portal. For Terraform overview, Terraform is an open source infrastructure as code tool developed by HashiCorp. It's used to manage the lifecycle and management of cloud infrastructure. Some benefits of Terraform include human-readable configuration language, allowing for faster production. State files allow us to track the resources used in our deployment in real time, and easy to version control and collaborate safely. Terraform uses plugins called providers, which allow for Terraform code to communicate with the target API and launch the infrastructure. Providers have instructions in the Terraform registry that outline instructions to manage resources on the respective cloud platform. We use the Microsoft Azure RM Terraform provider, which is HashiCorp certified.
For the steps to our solution, we first looked at some of the configuration files used by Open Journal Systems, including the installation scripts and development docs. And from there, we started with a virtual network and subnets with network security groups, a Linux virtual machine to host our OJS software, MySQL flexible server and database, as well as a load balancer and a Bastion host. You can go to the next slide. So we started with a resource group, which is used to store related infrastructure like virtual machines, virtual networks, and databases. And this is just an example in the picture below of a resource group with some resources like a DB subnet and Bastion subnet and our virtual machine. And you can go to the next one. So we used a VNet module to implement our virtual network on Terraform and using the public registry. And we were able to implement a virtual network, subnets, and service delegations like SQL for the database subnet, and also network security groups. And for our web server, we installed Apache 2 to host OJS software on the Linux virtual machine in our infrastructure. And we use custom data and scripts for that. And with an NSG or network security group, we were able to limit inbound traffic to ports 80 for HTTP, port 443 for HTTPS, and port 22 for SSH. And there's a little video here just showing going to the IP address and logging in as an admin and creating a journal. And just the admin can put the journal title and all the other required information to start a journal. Yeah, and then they just add it and it gets added. It takes a second to load, so we can just go to the next slide. So we also implemented a load balancer, which could be used for scaling in the future. But it also allows public access to the OJS app, and it proxies to our web server with its public IP address. And it limits traffic to port 80 with HTTP. And there's also a probe that monitors the health. And you can go to the next slide. There's also a Bastion host virtual machine, which allows for secure access to the web server and future infrastructure that we implement. Um, there's a public IP address that you can SSH with as an admin or any other authorized users into the VM. And then from there, you can SSH into our web server, which is the OJS VM in our infrastructure with the private IP address and look at what you need to. You can go to the next slide. And we also have MySQL server and database, which is required for the installation of OJS and the database migrations. And we implemented this inside the database subnet and the NSG filters inbound traffic for port 3306, which is used for the MySQL client, and port 1433, which is for the MySQL server. And these pictures just show the database and the virtual network that the service part or the server. So for the flow of control in OJS tech stack, there's a picture of it below. When a user interacts with an article, the front end, which consists of HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and the jQuery framework, those HTTP requests are sent to the backend, which consists of PHP and the OJS API. And the backend communicates with the MySQL database. You could also use Postgres, but we use MySQL. And then it communicates back with the backend. And Smarty templates are used to render the pages to the user. And you can go to the next one. So for the lessons learned, we learned how to use cloud computing with Azure, how infrastructure resources work to create a virtual network, and implementing Terraform code to manage infrastructure. We also learned that there are a lot of capabilities of Terraform and it's very complex. And in our case, we tried to deploy a web app to Azure with Terraform. You can go to the next slide. We also have future plans to implement a lot more features like domains, public and private DNS zones, SSL certs for HTTPS, scaling, which would allow for more load balancing features, and an application gateway, which would also allow for more features. But we plan to work on this in the future with the help of our mentor, Hemant Swami, who's been really helpful through this process. And you can go to the next slide, or if there's anything else anyone wants to add.
Yeah, I think I think that's all for today. Uh, thank you everyone for watching our presentation. Our team hope you have a good day.